The history of Smith of Derby goes back to 1856. Our connections with the University of Birmingham go back 100 years plus. Old Joe was built by J.B. Joyce and Company, which is a group brand company of Smith of Derby Limited.
They installed it in 1908 and the connections since then have been long lasting. When J.B. Joyce joined Smith of Derby, so did the university and so did the clock tower. The clock tower is maintained annually by ourselves. There's small repairs along the way and obviously significant ones such as this. The last time being in the 80s there was a significant repair.
So our connections go back to day one. We look after something over 4,000 public clocks in the UK alone and many more internationally.
The refurbishment of Old Joe has been a significant project both in the history of Smith of Derby and the Old Joe clock tower. That the hands had come out of balance with the internal counterbalancers, part of the dial works, which is part of the internal clock system, and the challenge was to get them down back to ground level, rebalance them in our workshop and get them back to pristine balance so when they rotate they keep perfect balance and the clock works well. I would say it's very uncommon we do a project like this at this height. It's the first time we've worked with a machine as big and high reach as that to remove the hands and obviously to install them. Normally we do a lot of work on church towers, town halls, etc., where you may be half of the height, if not a little bit higher, using rope access equipment, scaffold, etc. This is quite unique in that way that the equipment we use to get the hands off and put them back on is quite substantial, obviously used generally for wind turbines and brings its own challenges, but certainly something that we've all been interested in and some of us more than others keen to have a go at such height. So once hands were brought back to Derby, the initial project was to make sure that they were well balanced because that was the main fault. So the hands were all put on our balancing frame and the counterbalance is adjusted so they weigh the same as the hand. That means that anywhere on the clock face they will stay and sit stationary or rotate as they should and not go back to 6 with the gravity. Once that issue was overcome, there was some repairing and reprofiling of the spindle ends to make sure the hands fit flush. They'd started to wear away, probably due to the hands being out of balance and the clock having to work much harder. So we re-welded them, built them back up to 26mm in diameter, so they fit really flush with the hands, making sure the hands are secure on the clock face, which is quite important. Whilst the hands were off, it was a perfect opportunity to work on the dial works, which is only possible with taking the hands off. The dial works have been dismantled, all the wheels cleaned, all the bushes making sure they're in good order, reprofiled where necessary, built up and re-lubricated to make sure they turn really freely when the hands go back. Associated to that is the bevel set, which is the crown bevel within the room, so it transfers the power to the different dials. Again, they've all been dismantled, thoroughly cleaned, made sure all the bushes and pivots are in good order and rebuilt. Finally, there's been some straightening of the conrods, which is the piece of metal bar that goes from the clock and the bevel set out to the clock faces. So they've been straightened where necessary and painted with an anti-rust paint. The clock hands, whilst we had them down, we decided it was a good opportunity to repaint those. Thinking about longevity, we decided to abrade them back to their bare copper metal, then applied undercoat, primer and a satin black finish, really to bring them back to perfect visual condition, but more importantly, good protection from the weather, corrosion, any rust in the future.
We're delighted to be involved in the project for Old Joe today because it's such a significant, such an important and iconic piece of horological industry in the UK.